Hello there, folks. It's Tyson, and I'm back with you in the basement workshop. And today we are doing our third installment of planning. And we are going to be finishing up our measuring today. And the reason we're doing that is so that when we start to cut our materials, we're not going to make as many mistakes. And I say not as many mistakes because, things aren't perfect. And even when I have a plan and I've tried to think everything through, I still make mistakes from time to time. And I wanted to tell you, proof of that is this is my second time making this video because I was going, explaining and measuring, and then I realized, I've made a mistake. So I'm redoing it here. And, making mistakes isn't a bad thing. You learn by making those mistakes. And I think it's important that you know that even teachers or parents or older people who have experience, they still make mistakes too. It's all part of the learning. Now, normally I would have shown you all that, but it was like 10 minutes of me talking and going in the wrong direction. I think it's important to be honest about our mistakes, but really, I didn't want to bore you with that mistake. So I'm starting again here, and hopefully this time I'm going to do it right. And it's also really important that when you're doing your work, when you're doing your math or, science or any of those subjects, if you're looking at something and thinking, this doesn't seem right, it's a good idea to stop, think about it, think through it from the start, and maybe your gut is telling you something. Maybe you've made a mistake, and that's what's happened with me today. So I'm going to try it a second time around, and hopefully things go a little bit better this time. So let's say hello to little Tyson. Let's turn on the lights here, and let's get down to the second time of thinking this morning. Okay, now you can see here I have a bunch of writing that I erased, and it's no big deal. Like I said, we all make mistakes and I'm learning from it. So where we were yesterday was we had figured out the inside size of our box. We figured out how long, or I should say how wide, we wanted this bottom and top piece of plywood to be. That's 33 centimeters. And we wrote that on our cut list. 2 pieces at 33 centimeters. Then we also calculated the height of these 2 side pieces at 23. Now, I realized last night that there was something that I missed. And have you ever heard the expression, let me sleep on it? Now, what that means is that someone wants a little bit more time to think about something and cover all the angles, we can say. So last night I was thinking about it, and I realized we measured that this masonite that we're going to use to make these shelves is 3 millimeters thick. Okay, that's great. So we took that information. We said we're going to have 4 shelves, 3 millimeters thick. That's a total of 12 millimeters. So we need to add 1.2 centimeters or 12 millimeters to this height of this piece. And that's what we did. But I realized that I want these shelves to be able to slide in and out of that box. So if we imagine that my fingers here are this side of the shelf, I want to have a bit of space and I want to have my shelf to be able to slide in and out easily. So if we made that gap only 3 millimeters, it would be really tight. My shelf would be stuck in there. And in some situations with woodworking, that's what we want. But in this case, I want a little bit of space so my shelf can actually slide in and out. All right, so instead of making this 23 millimeters, we're going to do the same kind of calculation as before. So our original height was 21 centimeters, and we added 1.2 centimeters. So I'm going to redo this calculation here. So we're going to have 4 shelves still, yes. And instead of saying that I want it to be 3 millimeter space, I'm going to give us 5 millimeters of space. That's going to give me 1 millimeter on the top and 1 millimeter on the bottom so that this shelf can slide in and out more easily. So 4 multiplied by 5, you can think about that as multiplication or as 4 groups of 5 and think about it as addition. Oh, sorry, I'm shaking the table here, shaking my camera. Okay, so these two equations really give us the same thing in the end. If you can do this in your head, that's great. And you may even be able to see my math from before. Or we can do this as addition. 5, 10, 15, 20. Now remember, this is millimeters. So we've got to do that. Make sure we say that it's millimeters. And how many centimeters is that? It's 2 centimeters. Okay, now one thing that's important for you to know is that when I'm doing measuring work like this, I usually just stick with millimeters because they're smaller units, they're more precise, and it can get confusing for me if I'm flip-flopping back and forth between millimeters and centimeters. The reason I'm doing that today is hopefully to help you learn about or to help show you how you can convert from one to the other. All right, so we know that we want to have 2 centimeters added to our shelf here. Okay, so we said it was 23 centimeters. We're going to add 2 more centimeters. So we're going to make this, let's see if this eraser will erase. It's had a real workout already today. Okay, so we're going to think 23 centimeters plus 2 is going to be 25. And then 27 centimeters plus 2 is going to be 29. Now, we just need the 25 centimeter distance in here. And I'm going to change my cut list. There we go, 25 centimeters. And the next thing that we're going to do is we're actually going to draw out this side piece and we're going to double check our math because, as I said, I already made a mistake and it's always easier to check things out on paper rather than cutting your piece of wood and saying, oh, nuts, I cut things the wrong way and now I need to start with a new piece of wood. Remember, that's what we were talking about with minimizing our waste. If we plan ahead, that will usually help us minimize the mistakes and cut down on the amount of waste that we might make. Okay, so this ruler is 30 centimeters, and unfortunately, my piece of paper isn't quite long enough to draw this to scale. So we're just going to have to use our imagination, and I'm going to draw this as well as I can. And we're going to use the math to do our best and double check, make sure this is all going to work out. So I'm going to start by drawing the side piece of my shelf here. And we're going to do some math to make sure this is all good to go. Okay, now remember, this drawing is not going to be to scale, or, you know, it's not going to be exactly what we are going to be cutting on the saw, but it's going to give us a visualization, we could say. So this is my side piece. And remember, if we look here, we've got our top piece and bottom piece that are, we can say, butting up on the top and bottom. So I'm going to draw those pieces in here. Here we go. There's our top piece of plywood. Here's our bottom piece of plywood. And there we go. Got some visualization there. And I'm even going to write that in here. Top plywood and bottom plywood. Okay, perfect. So now we know what's what here. So let's start by checking out this drawing here. Remember, we were going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 shelves, which means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces. Now that's going to be important for our math. So this isn't going to be perfect, as I said, it's not to scale, but we're going to make a bit of a drawing here, and I'm going to see how close I can make it. So I'm going to say that's one shelf. I'm doing this 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces. There's my second shelf. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, this is going to be too small. Okay, hold on. We can use some math to make this a bit of a nicer drawing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Okay, so I've got 31 little lines here. I'm going to have 4 shelves. Okay, so we're 31 spaces minus 4 spaces, because that's how many shelves we're going to have. That is going to give us 27. And we need 27 lines divided by 5 spaces. Oh, so this isn't going to be even math for us, but if you can do mental math, you know 25 divided by 5 is 5. So I'm going to do 5 spaces here. And remember, not to scale, we're just doing something to figure ourselves out here. You know, that math was a little quick, sorry. We're going to slow it down and talk about it more carefully in our next step here. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so here's my first, where my first shelf is going to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where my second shelf is going to go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where my third shelf is going to go. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's where, and now you notice that these spaces are not perfectly equal, but this is just our drawing. This is giving us a rough idea. What we are going to do is calculate the actual measurements here. That's going to be the most important part. Okay, so thinking about here, we said that we were going to leave 5 millimeters. Oh, sorry, looking here. 5 millimeters for each shelf. So that means this is 5 millimeters. This space here, 5 millimeters. This space, 5 millimeters. This space, 5 millimeters. Okay, so we have 5, 5, 5, 5 millimeters all the way along. And what's this total height of our side wall of our shelf? What is this? 25 centimeters. So what's 25 centimeters in millimeters? Now remember, it's moving your tens. So 250 millimeters. Okay. Now we know that because there are 10 millimeters. Oh, not 10 meters. You know, I wish I had a good eraser on that pencil. I'm going to use this one here. So 10 millimeters equals 1 centimeter. Or we can think of it the other way around. 1 centimeter equals 10 millimeters. So that means if we have 25 centimeters multiplied by 10 equals 250. And that gives us our millimeters. Bam. Okay. So we have 250 millimeters. We're going to take away all of these spaces, to figure out what our space is between these. So I'm going to do skip counting. We have 5, 10, 15, 20 millimeters, or 2 centimeters. And remember, we already found that out here with our calculation. So I'm going to see 250 millimeters minus 5, 10, 15, 20 millimeters. Okay, can we do this with mental math? I think we can. You know, I have a habit of writing things horizontally, but when I do math on a paper, really I like to do it like this. That's subtraction, so 0 minus 0, 0, 5 minus 2, 3, 2 minus 0. Okay, so we have 230 millimeters, and we're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces, right? And that's the same thing that we saw in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 spaces where we can put those boxes. So I'm going to ask for 230 millimeters divided by 5 spaces, because we want each of these spaces to be equal. And let's have a look here. 230 millimeters divided by 5 spaces, 46 millimeters. Okay, so what that means is that each of these spaces should be 46 millimeters. Oh, I keep writing only one M. .46 millimeters. Okay, so if we want to double check our math here and see what the actual height is of this piece, we can just add all of these measurements together. So with what we calculated before, I was thinking that this side piece needs to be 25 centimeters, or that would be 250 millimeters. So let's double check our math. And just to make sure that I am really on the money here, I'm going to use my calculator. You know, the other thing is using my hands. I like to use that as a guide just to make sure I don't miss out on anything. So I'm going to start at the top and go to the bottom. So we have 46 millimeters plus 5 millimeters plus 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 46. 250. Okay, so that's good because that checks out with this number we had here, and it checks out with this number we had here and here. Now, I added all of these up, and using simple addition is a good way to do things, but if you look at the numbers we've got here, is there a way that you could figure this out with multiplication? Here's what I would do. I would say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups of 46 millimeters. And I'm going to put this in brackets because we're going to add something else to it. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 groups of 5 millimeters. Okay. Now, what these brackets mean is that we're looking at this part and then this part. If I didn't have those brackets, it would look like this. 5 multiplied by 46 plus 4 multiplied by 5, that would probably give us a different number. Because we'd be saying 5, what's 5 groups of 50? Because 46 plus 4 is 50. Okay. So this equation here, we can have a look at it. I've got brackets. Now this is a scientific calculator. So 5 multiplied by 46 plus 4. Whoop, forgot my bracket. Plus 4 multiplied by 5 equals 250 millimeters. Awesome. Okay, so there we go. We've double checked all of our information here. This is very good news. We know how wide we need to make our box. We know how tall we need to make these pieces, even allowing for the space for these shelves to slide in and out. And I think we are almost ready to cut. The last thing we need to think about is, how deep do we want these? Now, we remember that this plywood piece is 2 centimeters. And so I don't want to cut too far in here, because then that might make this piece of plywood weak and it might break. So rather than doing 1 centimeter or 10 millimeters, let's see, what's going to be a good amount for us? 1 centimeter. I'm going to say 0.5 centimeters, or half a centimeter, or that would also be how much? How many millimeters? If we say 0.5 centimeters, if we multiply that by 10, that's going to give us 5 millimeters. Okay, so we're going to make this depth 5 millimeters, and we're going to have that on both sides. So here's our last thing that we need to figure out. We're almost there, folks. That means that we have a notch in this side, a notch in that side. That's 5 millimeters. We have 290 millimeters across, plus 5 millimeters, plus 5 millimeters. So that is going to mean this shelf that's going to go in there needs to be 300 millimeters. And then we are good to go. All right, so our shelf is going to be... Oh, we didn't talk about a backing on this, but I don't think I'm going to put a backing on it. So we're going to have our masonite piece. For the shelves, we said that's going to be 300 millimeters. And we're going to make it the same depth, so 21 centimeters or 210 millimeters. There we go. So we are good to go. We've done all of our measuring. I am really happy that I took the time to plan each of those different things, because, I went wrong a couple spots along the way there. But it's always nice to check out that math, make sure everything is going to work out the way you're expecting it to. And it's also a really good way to practice your math. We did division, multiplication, addition, a little bit of subtraction. So some people say, when am I ever going to use this math in real life? Well, I'll tell you what, if you like to build things, you're definitely going to use math. If you like to cook things, you're definitely going to use math. And you want to use that math to make sure that you're not wasting wood, not wasting ingredients for your cooking. And that's a really important thing to be environmentally friendly. So I'm going to take these measurements and cut things up. We will assemble our screw box and shelf next time. So thank you for spending the time with me today. And let's turn out these lights and have a wonderful weekend.